And I remember there was this slide that had the vegetable because I was sharing with them about producer and they're a consumer when they buy things. And this was a farmer. So a farmer was farming and there were vegetables. And then so I asked them, are vegetables a need or a want? So of course they want all the ice cream and cakes and stuff.
They'll be like, it's a don't want. Is there an option for a don't want? That's what my 5-year-old would tell you.
And they could tell me that it's a need.
Yeah.
So the whole class went like, it's a need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I asked them, so are you going to eat your vegetables today?
No.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Clean Your Toilet podcast. My name is Sophia Tan. I'm an ex-educator turned wealth manager, and I'm someone who is very keen on financial literacy. And I hope that one day it'll be a compulsory topic in school. Hi, Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Chen. I'm a PhD researcher, a HR practitioner. I'm a mom to a 5-year-old, and I also run my own boutique HR fractional strategy consulting called CoGrow. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I'm not sure if you've heard
Tell me about you.
Yes.
Tell me.
Okay. So, I understand today we're kind of talking a bit more about identity and maybe reinventing it. It was 10 years ago. I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. Yeah. And I was given 6 months
Wow.
to live. Yeah. And and at that point in time, I wasn't ready to give up. So I kind of told myself that I'm just going to get myself through the treatment because I knew that once I start, I won't be able to back out. Yeah. And I just want to get out and not come back. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that is a very strong start. I mean, can you, it's fascinating because you mentioned the doctor said 6 months.
Yes.
Right. Was the treatment optional? Tell me a bit more about the treatment. Is it meant to be if you do the treatment, that is a question mark 6 months, or if you do the treatment, we definitely know that this could, extend your health. How does that conversation look like?
Well, I think at first it was, it was because I took part in a dengue research. Yeah. And then I kind of told myself that, okay, they're looking for dengue patients. They can't really get someone else, to be part of the research. And I said, okay, if I could help people not get bitten by mosquitoes. So I said, okay. I said, yeah. And so it was on that day in which that I turned up, and then they took blood and skin sample. And it was that evening in which that I first heard about it.
Wow.
And it was over the phone.
Did you have sort of feeling? Did your body did you know, or was it complete shock?
I think I just froze.
Wow.
At that point in time. I think the research doctor kind of felt that, maybe I'm not going to go to the hospital. So he just said, oh, it's really urgent. We have a bed for you. Can you come?
Yeah.
Immediately. And so that's the first time I heard it. And then subsequently, I heard it from 2 other doctors. Yeah, from different hospitals after I've done all the, all the tests and bone marrow aspiration, in which that they have to draw it out from the cells and to see what it is. Yes. So yeah, but somehow it kind of, so I think it was the fear, and then it came towards rage, actually.
Wow. Tell us about the rage.
Because I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, wow, who are you to tell me how long I have left?
I love that. It's the message. It's not the rage towards the illness.
Yeah. And then it took me quite a bit of time before I kind of like came to this acceptance, and I said, okay, we shall do the treatment. Yeah. And so that was the part in which that, it was daunting, to say the least, to get through. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, while I was in the hospital, I know people who went through treatment, went through the same protocol, and sometimes don't get to make it. Yeah. So I count myself very lucky, very blessed. I am, thank God I'm here. Thank God that I still get to contribute. To people. So I feel that I still have, like, I have a mission. I'm not finished. So God must be telling me that, oh, sorry, you can't come home yet.
Yeah. So I love that at the beginning of your intro, it wasn't something necessary you have introduced, right? So, which I'm curious, how has that sort of impact how you think about who you are and your experience and your identity?
Yeah. I think I think before that, I would feel that, I still have a long way ahead of me. Yeah. There are, things I want to get done, right? But I would be like, okay, I could take my time. Yeah. And then, of course, when faced with mortality of 6 months, I remember like running through my head. It's like, okay, is there someone that I should like go talk to? Are there things that I have to make sure that I kind of settle? Yeah, that, there is not going to be, at that point in time, I'm really going to take my last breath. Are there going to be any regrets? Yeah, so it was, it was really quite a trying time.
Yeah, of course, I can imagine.
So I think from there, I would think that, that was like the start of the shift in terms of how I think about things, how I feel that I have to stand up for myself, to express myself a lot more, establish very clear boundaries. Yeah.
That's a big shift.
It is. I think before that, I think when people have known me when I was younger, would probably think of me, I think it was my like first or like second job, like colleagues from that pure time say, oh dear, I think Sophia is like easy to I would say, well, I mean, I find it hard to say no to things or to people. And so a lot of times I'll just take it on, even though I might not want to. Yeah. So that's definitely a shift.
Yeah.
And I think there was times in which I say yes so much that sometimes others get reliant or dependent, and it becomes lose-lose. I'm not happy doing it, but the other person would keep asking. So it's a lose-lose situation. Yeah. And I'm actually perpetuating that.
So how do people, I guess, when there is such a somewhat drastic shift, right, of saying more no, finding the boundary, how do people around you react to that?
In fact, I was just having this conversation with some friends last night. Yeah, because I think we are also into Enneagram, into personal development. And then after that, another friend was saying that, she felt uncomfortable because she was doing her DISC. And then she said, like her D went up. Yeah. And then to her, she said that it's like she's uncomfortable that her dominance like went up, like way up. Because she said that to her, dominant people are not very nice people. Yeah. And then after that, I remember thinking to myself, like, when I first wanted to draw boundaries and things like that, there are people who get a bit thrown off. It's like, okay. But I also felt good for myself. Yeah. And I remember the earlier part was very uncomfortable because that's not the usual SOP or pattern of how I respond to others. Yeah. And then there was I'll be questioning myself. Is this mean? Am I hurting the other person?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think I kind of got used to that. And then there is a different way of being.
Feel like our is almost like a muscle memory. Sometimes how do we respond to things? And people around us actually interpret a lot about who we are in our identity through our actions, right? So I think it's really interesting when you say, people like, dominant people is not good or not so nice, right?
Yeah.
Or even just professional identity, because being in HR is, one of the most common things I get as a comment is that you don't sound like HR or you don't look like HR. I'm like, what am I supposed to look like or sound like? But there's so much, I realize, through conversations with many, different, really interesting people with different, let's put a quotation on identity. A lot of the identity is actually interpreted by others. There is our connection to our identity, but actually there's a connection between how other people see our identity and how, exactly. Right. So it's fascinating that sort of that shift actually not only make you uncomfortable, probably makes your friends uncomfortable,
family
as well,
uncomfortable.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also curious. You mentioned that you're a mom.
I am.
How many kids do you?
Just one.
Just one.
Yes. Just one. Yes. 5-year-old, a boy.
Okay.
And then I feel like, that's part of my identity as well. Yeah.
Was there identity shift?
Drastic.
When you became a mom.
Yeah. I mean, I think before being a mom, the identity probably for me has been so much centered around my career. And, I lived around the world a little bit. So I'm from Taiwan originally, but I grew up in New Zealand. And after New Zealand, I was in London. I was in Norway. Then I came to Singapore, went to Indonesia, and then came back here to continue sort of work and start my own company. So I think for a long time, I think my identity has been connected to my work and my studies and my, research. I wrote a book as well. But becoming a mother, the shift has been very much around, actually similar to what you said, how do we even rethink about how we respond to our environment? Time and energy becomes even more precious because now I want to make sure the time I'm away from my precious, new human being in my life, that I'm doing things as meaningful, right? I will ask myself, is this the trade-off of time and energy I want away from my family? Which I think before, it doesn't feel as maybe urgent to preserve some of those energies. So you're always saying yes. You're always saying yes to going to see people, parties, events, where now I'm super selective in terms of where I spend my time, how I spend my time, because there's so much more of me that I want to preserve for my family, my kid as well. And I think also even with work, I think about more, am I doing things that I can set a good example and be a role model for my child? Versus before, I think that's a little bit more a pursuit of career growth, pursuit of a bit more salary, pursuit of a bigger. I think the pursuance becomes very different when I became a mother.
Yeah, and I'm also very keen to find out, like I feel that, went through a shift, and due to which are the parts of that identity do you think were like resilient, like it didn't change?
That's a really good question. I think the things that doesn't change is anchor in sort of your values, right? Like what you believe in the world, whether that is, I think what came out even more is my belief in how we should think about human from the point of their strength. Even in HR, people do this a lot, right? What are your weaknesses? And then how do we develop your weakness, right? Versus do we take a broader view, actually not broader, if anything, a narrower view and say, what are your strengths? And let's double down on that. And then what you need to make sure is that you are in a space where your strength can be utilized, right? So I think the value of how do we come from point of strength, come from point of the positivity, coming from, I think my value anchor are not always settle for the status quo, like always believing there are better ways to do things, believing that there's more innovative ways, even in things that people think cannot be too innovative. But again, I go back to identity interpretation, right? How people think about HR as a function, how people think about how innovative we can be, how business savvy that we can be. I think all these things, sort of that has never changed, whether as a career, as a mother. I always believe, how do I come from a strength of who I am as a person, and what does that look like as a mother? Right. And what does that look like for my child? Can I foster his strength rather than trying to be like, oh, you need to do better all the time? I think those anchor has a move and shift. But it may look different though, right? Again, for those outside, it may show up differently.
But it's that those values have anchored you.
Yeah. How about you?
I think for myself, there are, I think I've always wanted to come from a win-win perspective. Yeah. And so I thought, I think in the past, I mentioned about like saying yes to things. I think it was also thinking that, okay, maybe, I will help this other person get what they want. And then I will get what I want in terms of like getting approval. I'm liked. Yeah. But I think subsequently find that the value hasn't changed, but it's just that, like what you said, how I show up, how it happens, has changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that value actually hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, just now you mentioned about strengths and weaknesses. I have been told by different, like they are mentors or, business coaches. Some think that, in order to grow as much as develop as a person, professionally, personally, is to work on your strengths. Like, you because you're already good at it, right?
Yeah.
And so you work a bit more, you should kind of grow even more from there. But I also do have, friends who think about it the other way. Is that,
of course.
Oh, this particular weakness is holding you back.
Yeah.
The most. It's like getting rid of this particular habit, for example, is like you paying the price of getting rid of a bad habit. And they think that, making sure that you get rid of this weakness would help you more.
Yeah.
What's your perspective in terms of, okay, work on strengths or just like get rid of that?
So I think there's a few different things, right? It's also not as binary. When you say bad habits, right? I think habits are behaviors.
Okay.
Right? Versus when we talk about strength and to a certain extent. So I'm a certified strength finder coach, right? So when we talk about strength, I think there's two things. There is your talent, and talent without investment cannot become strength. So to a certain extent, when we say we're developing strength, we're actually developing the talent that you have, right? So just because you have the talent doesn't mean it's yet your strength. So there's still a lot of work that you have to do to actually get there, right? I do think I'm a big believer that you need to make sure the talents that what I call less intuitive talent, okay? So the talent that is not as accessible to you, it cannot be the blocker for your strength. So I think the level, what you will focus on looks a little bit different, right? I don't know, when you say getting rid of bad habits, I think habits could come actually from your strength. So for example, if your strength is achiever, maybe your habit is you're over controlling, right? So because you want to achieve everything the way you want it, I'm making this up, right? But the behavior that shows up, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a weakness. I think it is a what we call sort of a basement behavior of a strength. So even looking at those behavior from a perspective of a potential strength, I think allow you to think about development in a much more multi-dimensional way. So I do believe that you can interpret sort of things that you're working on through that lens, right? Either they're not your intuitive talent or they could be based on behavior of your strength, understanding which talent is not fostered and that you can actually grow them into your strength, and then making sure the least intuitive talent isn't a blocker to your strength. So it's a lot more complex, I think, than just do we believe one or the other.
Cool.
How about you? What's your philosophy around strength?
I think to me, in terms of strength, I feel that in terms of, I think maybe I could think about it in terms of alignment. Yeah. Because there may be certain things that, I'm good at, but perhaps in terms of what I want to flesh out in life, may not be exactly useful in that sense. Yeah. So I don't know. So sometimes, let's say for example, I like to sing. Yeah. But in terms of maybe financial literacy, for example, I can be singing.
You can make a song about financial literacy. I can totally see that being great for children. I mean, we're talking about educating children, right? How do we connect with them?
Kind of
this is connecting your strength.
Yes, encompassing all the things I like.
Yes.
And to, finance or financial literacy in that sense. Yeah. So because when I think about the alignment, it's okay, maybe I want to do this. I think about, okay, maybe I need to do some kind of communication skills. I need to be able to be comfortable around people, So stuff like that I think aligning to what I think is important or what I feel is my mission.
Yeah.
To want to, bring out in that sense.
Tell me more about your mission.
Right. So now I have been a wealth manager. I'm with Philip for been in the practice for about 13 years.
Wow.
So my very first client who said yes to me is still with me. And we have been walking this journey. So partnering, each other on this journey of life. And I think it's really very fulfilling. And so this mission, I think it has been all the way. So before I came into this practice, I was a teacher. And before that, I was at the bank. And,
wow.
So I have always thought it's so important to be financially literate or, go through that education. But unfortunately, it's not something that's taught in schools. And when I was at the bank, I thought I could do that for people that I meet at the bank, but I don't think the banks are very interested. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll go and do it at the schools. And there used to be a collaboration between a financial institution and NIE to do financial literacy. And I do have senior teachers who are trained in that. So there are some of us who are trained in that. And then we thought that, okay, we want to bring it to the schools or bring it to the kids.
Yeah.
So I was teaching at a secondary school. And unfortunately, or I don't know, fortunately, it was like relegated. It's only talked about during assembly, but nobody is really listening during assembly talks. Yeah. So I kept thinking to myself, how do I kind of be able to bring this, mission to people? So that's why I have that shift again, like pivoted to being in finance. And I think it also has got to do with how, when I was younger, the family isn't like super well to do. And so my sister and I kind of like worked ourselves, and so we paid for our school, our own tertiary education. And I remember when I was like younger, like a teenager, and that's also the time in which that I'm like, grappling with identity and also looking for belonging among like different groups of friends. And so, hanging out takes money. It's like, even if you go out, even if you
Of course,
have fast food or things like that, it's going to cost. Yeah. And I remember having to kind of scrimp and make choices to say, okay, today I have this particular amount of money because I'm going to hang out this particular number of hours.
Yeah.
I will eat this at this time, and then I will have a bit of money left to eat this at a later part so that I'm not gonna be hungry. Yeah. And so I also felt that as with conversations with a lot of friends, some of them would tell me like adulting is hard, and a big part of it is conversations around money.
Yeah.
And so when I speak to my friends, 30s, 40s, and then I would ask them, would you happen to know, because in terms of planning, finances with regard your parents will eventually affect us. Yeah, for good or for bad. So I'll ask, do you know if your parents can retire? And then they'll be like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Or I have also heard about that, money is a taboo topic in the family. So people don't talk about it. I have friends who will come into a meeting with me. So it's a couple, and then I'll say that, okay, this is your homework. Would you be able to go back and discuss? And then so 2 weeks later, when we meet again, we'll have a bit of a like, okay, this is where you stand. This is where you stand. So in terms of investment, in terms of how we're going to structure and strategize this, we'll have a bit more of a clarity. And then after I realized that when we meet again 2 weeks later, they have not discussed it. They will discuss finances when I'm around. Yeah, so there's this, I would say that being financial literate would give us confidence. Yeah, and also peace of mind.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope to be able to bring to people, the community. Yeah. So 2 weeks ago, I had like my first financial literacy workshop for the kids.
Wow. How old?
They are 7 to 12.
Okay.
So that's the primary school.
Yeah.
And because I think that's a good age to work with. They are still quite open to ideas and say, okay, let's like find out what's happening in that sense. And they are still like not resistant when their parents sign them up for things.
That's true.
Yeah. And so I remember one friend who mentioned to me that one of her kids like kept like coming home with snacks. And then after that, she was asking her child, like, oh, okay, interesting. Like where do you get them from? Yeah. And then she said, oh, some came from her friends, which is true. And then outside the rest came from, like, they're free. And then mom is like, how come? Why are they free? So she probed a bit further. And apparently, in schools, they're given the card for them to like tap for the canteen and things like that.
Oh, so she went canteen galore. She thought that's
tapping.
free. I'm like, there's this car. I tap it and things come out.
Yeah, things come out. Yeah. Our kids like go to this, like the ATM. It's like, like
yes. Money just come out. Yes.
Money just comes out of the wall, Yeah. So it's really to create like an awareness of needs and wants, of like, we want to pay ourselves first. And then also things like after like I've saved, I've spent, then I have an amount that I could share. Yeah. And then we also talked about budgeting. I think it's very, actually they are aware. It's just that some of the times they don't like, maybe when things come very easy, it's very easy to say, oh, okay, I have a card anyway.
Yeah.
Or if, let's say, for example, I need I need a new pair of shoes, or a new cap or bag or something like that. And most of the times parents are like, okay, let's get it for you this weekend. Yeah. So there's no sense of delayed gratification at all.
Yeah.
Or there isn't a sense of, I think, working towards something to say, okay, I'm going to be able to plan and save this. If I want a bicycle, I put aside 100, and then, when I save to 100, my dad and mom can match like dollar for dollar.
Yeah.
And I could buy one. Yeah. And I remember there was this slide that had the vegetable, because I was sharing with them about producer and they're a consumer when they buy things. And this was a farmer. So a farmer was farming and there were vegetables. And then so I asked them, are vegetables a need or a want? So of course they want all the ice cream and cakes and stuff.
They'll be like, it's a don't want. Is there an option for a don't want? That's what my 5-year-old would tell you.
And they could tell me that it's a need.
Yeah.
So the whole class went like, it's a need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I asked them, so are you going to eat your vegetables today?
No.
Yeah. So
oh no. So you're telling me when they're 7, they're still not going to change?
But I have come across kids who love vegetables.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but that seemed to be a common thing when they don't like it very much. Yeah. So they are aware. And so I would like to kind of start them young and just now we talked a bit about habits too. And I think in terms of having good financial habits, it's also something that built from young in that sense, or is something that we kind of like copy, from our parents' behavior. Yeah. So in terms of my mission and then the workshop that I did, so we were also speaking to our parents as well.
Yeah.
Because I think as an ex-educator, a lot of times, like say we had some like citizenship, like education, and I think call it CCE. I can't remember what exactly it stands for anymore. And sometimes after you share certain things in class, and then when they go back home and say, "Oops," parents say something else or do something else. Yeah, and so I also wanted the parents to be there to kind of be like on that same journey with their children. Yeah. And I also suggested that, well, perhaps it could be like a family budgeting
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, so the kids know that, oh, okay, you know, weekly, that's the amount that we have for groceries, you know. So if you're going to put this extra sweet, this extra, you know, like something to just, like, mommy, can I buy this? You know, and they put it into the trolley. Yeah. So I would, really like them to have this idea about, okay, we have this $200 a week. Yeah. If you're going to buy this, we're out of budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And taking money, you know, away from our future selves. So, yeah.
I mean, that resonated so deeply because I come from a family where we don't talk about money. And I will say we're a middle class family, right? You know, so I never have to necessarily worry about money, but at the same time is never discussed, or I never had any education around it, right? And I never had pocket money growing up. So there is no money for me to like learn to manage, right? So, and I think my relationship with money and therefore becomes a really distance because I just never really had the opportunity to learn. So I've never budgeted in my life. Once I start working, actually I start working when I was 13 in New Zealand. It's not child labor. It's, you know, it's kind of like apprenticeship. It's part-time. I was working in a cafe, you know, cleaning dishes. But I started because it was my way to me, I connected with independence and freedom, right? Because I never had money in the sense that I don't get pocket money. So as a kid, then I never have this ability to think about money, budgeted, and then connect it with my own independence and freedom, right? Every time you want something, you have to ask for it. And when you grow to a certain age, you like what you said, wants and needs are different. You kind of know I want something. I probably shouldn't ask my parents for it, but I don't have money, right? So I think when you're also younger, that line of logic, sometimes you can make bad decisions. Right? But, you know, and I've made bad decisions in a sense that not as bad, but, you know, I remember going into my dad's pocket and take some money from my dad's, you know, and quite frankly, yes, I stole. Oh my God, I resort to stealing. But part of it is because I haven't understood ways to budget or ask or access money. Although as a human nature, we know what's want and need. And I think I took that money to go and buy some candy because at the same time, I wasn't allowed candy, right? But that I have seen how it showed up in my adult life, right? Because I haven't had that same relationship or openness to talk about money. I really don't know how to manage money. So my money sense has been very, very basic, which is I always say, do not spend more than you earn. And then that also means I haven't had the early sort of opportunity to think about even investment. So I'm a very, very late investor, you know, late in my 30s, right? And now knowing what I know, I'm like, oh my God, I miss a gigantic opportunity when I look at my husband who started investing in his early 20s, right? You know, even putting little money aside. So now I can sense the opportunity cost. So one of the things that my husband and I talked about is that making sure even with our 5-year-old to start teaching him this concept of money, right? So, and I think it's also important to not teach it from a point of guilt. So what do I mean by that? Is also like, I don't want to say to my son, like, oh, you can't buy candy because it costs money, or no, we're not going to do this because it's too expensive. I think it's much more to have a healthy relationship to say, what's money, right? Like we go to work, part of it is that there's money, but of course there's purpose. We love what we do. Yes. But he understands that money doesn't grow on trees, right? It doesn't just come from nowhere. It doesn't just come from that thing that you button in the wall that comes out. But that is definitely, I am a big fan of how do we start financial literacy early on? Because now I'm 41. Now I can see how it has impacted my later life decisions, right? I have been financially responsible, but again, I think, you know, there's a lot of things I would love to have learned about investment early on. You know, I would love to think about planning in a more structured way. So yeah, absolutely. I think what you do, and I love that you say you do it with the parents as well, because those are both ways, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's a great mission. It's a great mission. I love it.
What about yourself?
My mission.
Yes.
So I think being in HR for so long, there is an underlying mission around our human potential, right? The mission of how do we find ways to support us as human beings to understand our own potential and allowing pathways for those to come out, right? I mean, but I'm also being mindful. I'm not playing the hands of God. It's not my job to extract that for you. But what I would like to be able to is have those pathway for individuals to make choices about their life, about their potential, about, how do they again, build a relationship with their own potential and understanding that, right? So I think a lot of the work, either at the organizational level, right, thinking about organizations' potential and their own growth, or at a team level or at an individual level. So I think my mission has been very much geared around that, and also around innovation and change. How do we continue evolve and find better ways to do things? So I would say that has been embedded vision and mission and all the things that we do.
Right. Because just like you mentioned about how that, about potential, I think that gives you choices.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe how I feel about money as well. Is like money gives us agency.
Yeah.
Gives us options and choices. Yeah. And so, okay, let's talk a bit more about, you mentioned that it would, so because I also feel that it ties back to our identity as well. Right?
Absolutely.
Because you feel so much about, okay, I want to be able to realize potential from people. Yeah. And so that would you say that, is that how you also see yourself in terms of identity?
It's interesting, right? Because I see myself as, how do we become facilitators, actually, of people's choices? I think that's a very different way to think about yourself as the person who is there to extract, others' potential. I think there is a very different type of relationship when you think that you're the person who's activating it versus you're the person that allows for an ecosystem for people to make choices. Because it's so important that, going back to agency and control and choices, I think those are the key things in life for people to feel empowered, right? So I think there is that identity for me is, how do I, and maybe that's why I choose, a big part of my job is coaching, right? Being a coach is, I can't tell you what to do, and I don't want to tell you what to do. What I want is allowing you the space and pathway and frameworks and ecosystem to make the choices for you. And I have finally learned, and it took a while, to say, I'm sometimes just going to let people make the choices that even I think is bad. But that is going to be your choice. But I need to make sure I have facilitated that thought process, which has changed my identity, how I think about what makes me good at my job. Because I used to think my identity as the head of HR or coach, being good at my job is making you do the right thing that I think is right for you. Right. And that is so hard. It's so hard because, number one, obviously I'm not always right, although I could think that's the right thing for you, right? Versus, have I done everything I can to allow you to make informed choices that is for your life, for you to own, for you to be accountable? Then I will continue to be here to be your coach, to hold you accountable to that choice and support you through the outcome of choices. But I have really, I think the biggest shift for me for the last 2 years, I've stopped wanting them to do the things that I want them to do. Right? That I think is what brings out their potential. You know what? Maybe that isn't the right approach. And then I have a very different identity linked to what I think being a high performer or being a good coach, right? Being a good coach
means.
yeah.
Right. I think when people make their own choices and they learn those lessons stick.
Yeah.
Rather than, like, okay, I'm told to do certain things, I do it, but maybe I don't really want to do it. Yeah. But even when the outcome turns out well, like
you don't
fail.
realize. Yeah, exactly.
Like we don't fail.
No.
But
it's not a lesson learned.
It's not a lesson learned.
You have just dodged a bullet, but you didn't actually know how to shoot or where did the bullet come from. And, I think, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's really, really, but I think that's also like a growth process for you.
Yes.
As a coach.
I think so. And part of it's interesting to talk about, again, I think identity shows up as behavior, right? I'm a big fan of everything sort of that's part of us shows up in different behaviors. And I think as my identity shift to learn about being a mother, I think that has also supported me to think about growth and potential differently. Because there's also times as a mother, as a parent, you have to choose, let them fall so they will learn, right? Of course, you choose the right? I'm not going to let you fall off the cliff, but okay, you want to go up that stairs, and so I think there is that learning that also through different identities, through the different pathway. I think I'm definitely bringing that into my professional life, as a coach, as an HR leader, to find that balance.
Yes, because I think unfortunately, I think our young are getting very coddled. So, or, parents will be like, like, don't run, don't do this.
Yeah.
Do this.
Yeah.
So, it was recently like one of a younger friend, client said that, it feels like because they have not made a lot of their own decisions when they were younger.
Yeah.
Now that they are grown up, they are like, there is this like a lack of confidence of agency of like making decisions. And it could be regard to like life decisions, money, and they are like, I have always been told what to do, even though I didn't like it. There wasn't an opportunity to make mistakes, and also being able to take consequence. Yeah. And that is something I think our young is, missing out on the lessons.
No, absolutely. And so much when we learn as a young, we bring to our adulthood, right? And I love we were just talking about just now about how people say, don't do this, don't do that, right? Like when your kid climb up, you say don't. And something I've learned to say differently, and also being a coach as well, right? Like is how do we ask questions that allows them to think? So my favorite question when these things happen, like he's climbing up, I will look him in the eye and I'll ask him, do you feel safe? Right? And then if the answer is yes, I will say, I trust you and your choice, right? And if he falls in, he understands, right? And I almost think about even as adult, as investment, right?
Yes.
There's no, I'm sure as a wealth, advisor, that everyone has a different threshold of risk, right? And so the question becomes also almost a similar question to yourself, right? Do you feel safe? When you're putting these investment, you have to understand the risk. You may lose everything, right? So do you feel safe making those decisions? I think how do we also tap into this sense of safety, but thinking about safety as a part of things that we can control, that we have agency over, is really important. So triggering that different thoughts, right? Teaching him to think about that, to feel in your body, because how much of our childhood, I don't know if this is an Asian thing, so I will put it out there, but we don't feel as much, You know, we go to school, we learn, we do exams. There isn't a lot of tapping into feelings. And feelings are all gooey, right? Feeling is, do you feel safe? Do you feel like this is the right conversation do you have? Do you feel like that? Tapping into feelings to me is, how do we train our intuition? How do we train our body to respond to the world around us and trusting this is your compass?
Right. But it's also interesting when you mention about like investments and about like how we feel safe. Because I think a lot of the times, you know, when emotions get in the way of investments or investing, a lot of times people make very emotional decisions, which means that, you know, when they see something dropping,
Must
then
stop.
it's like we're gonna like sell it. Yeah. But it's a bit like you know, turbulence in a plane. Yeah. And
Can't jump when it is,
because the captain will actually ask us, like, you know, can you strap up? Yeah. And then you stay the course. And then after that, you know, the captain is going to land it safely. And then we get to our destination. So I think I tell my friends, I tell my clients, I said, you know, especially when the external economy is getting so messy, it's so chaotic, you know, like people not sure where politics are heading. Yeah, that's when our own internal economy actually has to be very, very strong. Which means that I have my blueprint in place, my plan is in place. I know that if I do this, you know, I save and invest, I'll get here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm positioned well. So regardless of what's happening outside, you know, there can be storms, there can be, I don't know, COVID again, touch wood, you know, and we will still get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was speaking to some of the younger ones. I went to RI recently. And then after that, they were asking about like how to invest, how to start, you know, what to look at. Yeah. But they have not looked at other things in their life. Yeah. In terms of budgeting, in terms of saving, in terms of, you know, what to do with their money. But they just wanted to look at the investing part. Yeah. But I said there's actually a sequence to things. You want to make sure that you got your sequence down, you got your blueprint in place. Then you find out like, okay, I have this financial goal, I have this particular timeline. Then I know what kind of tolerance to volatility that, you know, I can take in that sense. But I think, I don't know, maybe it's the social media as well that has like, you know, bombarded us with a lot of things. And to them, it's like, okay, just investments. But that's not the first conversation. Yeah. So yeah. And of course, to me, I also feel that when they see what's happening on social media, that has affected how they see themselves, how they think about, you know, identity, about money, how it is, I mean, a resource to get them certain things, which is why they are so like, okay, I want to start doing this, or I want to, you know, buy cryptos or something like that. And because, you know, I think when we were younger, it's like we grew up with our parents, we watched the TV together.
Yeah.
Like parents were around to kind of moderate, you know, what we're watching for us. Yeah. But I think a lot of times, you know, youths are on the phones themselves, on the iPad themselves, and they are watching things and consuming information and videos and cartoons and whatever else that some of the times the adults don't get to moderate. Yeah. And that also affects them in terms of identity, their self-esteem, and I mean, social media just wants to show us nice things. Yeah. But it doesn't show us the work.
And now you add a complexity of like AI on top of it, right? Like, you know, when kids are at a certain age, when they feel like they couldn't talk to their parents, they couldn't talk to their friends, and now they're turning into ChatGPT to have conversations. And that, again, skews the way that how perceptions and how identity are being formed, right? So I do think that the world that we operate in right now has a lot more volatility of that impacts the identity. So to a certain extent, I kind of get glad that I grew up in the age that's a lot more analog. I'm sure we both have seen the rise of the internet, the rise of mobile, and we got to see the world before, and I didn't want to be that person, but now I'm old enough. I am that person to say, oh, I kind of understand why. I kind of appreciate a bit of that analogness because our world is so noisy right now, and I can imagine for the next generation, it's so hard to find your voice in this noise. Right. And then not just find your voice, it's so hard to hear yourself. Right. One thing is speak out around your voice. But then second, do you even hear yourself? Because there's just so much noises out there. So I think then the next generation is navigating a whole different ways of identity, mortality, reinventions than how we, may have experienced it.
Yeah. And so I think it's so important that, the family is like the anchor for them. They know that they can always come back, to the family. I was very curious also because just now you mentioned about like potential. Is or are there like certain tools or instruments or modalities that you like a lot? Yeah, in terms of like excavating like potential or like, because we want to get to a certain point. Like maybe, okay, I need to like kind of assess you. This is your point A. Yeah. We're going to try to get to point B.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have that like, what are those tools that you love or you like?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm a little bit biased, right? Because I think the combination of I'm a big fan of strength, right? So Strength Finder as a tool and then coaching as a different tool. So not necessarily saying you only focus on strength. I actually think Strength Finder as a tool to understand yourself, the realization, sometimes putting words into how you're experiencing certain things helps, right? Helps your coach you to find a bit more anchor in the sheer language. So I'm a big fan of that tool. I've sort of pretty much predominantly just use that. Again, I just also think there's too many tools, too many noises. So I like to sort of focus. Yes. And then coaching as a great way then to really amplify or extract those potentials, right? And help people to really align. I love when coaches sort of go through that process and now I understand why I have made those choices or how I feel, right? And a lot of time I say you can feel it when you're not using your strength or overusing your strength. And a lot of these things shows up in behaviors. So how do we have a better understanding and interpreting of those behaviors allows you then to change and shift. And again, that's then how do you amplify your potential that way. So these are the tools that I use, but there are many, many other tools. And I think more introspective tools are great, right? How do you write, read and just learning to use critical thinking just in general, I think, are some of the tools I love to continue to introduce to my client partners, my kids, and use it myself. How about you? Any tools for our listeners before we wrap up?
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, for myself, now I'm actually doing a course. We're doing it online, and it's from Enneagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we are kind of exploring our soul child. Yeah. So kind of like coming back to our essence. Yeah. So that is something which I think I have garnered a lot of value from. And I think, different modalities help me to kind of look at myself in different aspects.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the other one that I like a lot is human design. Yeah. So that is also something which I think I have, again, garnered a lot. And it kind of, it's like peeling off the
onions?
layers. Yeah, the onion. Yeah, it's like, like this one kind of reveals this aspect of myself, and then this one reveals this other aspect. And I think there was a facilitator, the coach, and she taught us voice dialogue. Yeah, so we were doing parts work, and then a couple of us kind of like, like buddied up and like, okay, we were doing it for, I think about 2 years or so. We consistently like were using that tool to kind of help ourselves understand like what's going on, within. And so we were doing that regularly, almost every week, and it had been a great journey.
Great.
Yeah. And
well, thank you very much for sharing. I think all the tools is helpful. And it's important that we use them as we think about the next step of growth as well.
Yeah. I think in terms of like you said about excavation, I think a lot of times, we want to go away, go overseas, and then we want to see things outside. But I think inside it's also so much to discover.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's also where I think in terms of that potential can be discovered. Yeah. And can be, brought to greater heights in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's all the time that we have for today. And so I'm so glad that we spoke about, financial literacy. We spoke about identity. We spoke about how to excavate that, potential and the different tools that, we can do so. So thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for tuning in. See you next time.